Good day, everyone. This is our lesson 7 in Purposive Communication titled Obtaining Information from Various Sources. Let us start with answering the question, why should I think about my sources? At the foremost, when we say sources, these are where we get the information that we need. They may come from, say, the internet, books, the library, basically anything printed, anything recorded. It may also come from people. Like our sources may directly be people or experts. And so again, the question, why should I think about my sources? Why is it important for us to consider where we get the information that we have? That is primarily because if our sources are not reliable, our sources are not current, our sources say are outdated, or our sources are misleading, then that will greatly affect either our speech or our written output. It may, worse, lead to us being an accessory to the crime of distributing false information. And that's why it is very important for us to know how to identify whether our sources are valid, reliable, or not. Understanding the type or genre of information you are encountering allows you to predict its form, function, and context, making what you find more understandable and helping you determine the relevancy and validity of the information. So first, we have to identify the type or the genre of the information that we are looking for or that we are encountering so that we may be able to identify as well its form, function, and context. So the form has a lot to do with its structure, the function is its purpose, like why was it written, the context is what surrounds the information, like the environment or the ambience or the reason or the causes. And that will also help us understand and determine the relevancy, whether the material or the information is important, and the validity, whether the information is something that we can trust. Information doesn't just happen or exist on its own. Remember that. It is produced by people. And so the people behind information, they matter. All right? They are disseminated either through traditional means like mainstream and scholarly publishers, like the ones we have in books, or non-traditional, like self-publishers or the internet. These, for example, YouTube channels, even those that we see on Facebook Reels or in TikTok, those are all non-traditional means of getting information or non-traditional channels of information. We don't really know if the steps to skincare being given to us by a particular, say, YouTuber or a particular content creator is correct or not, right? That's non-traditional. And so it is important for us to, again, identify or learn if our sources are reliable or not. However, even if they go through the traditional channels, like say the information that you have was published in a book, that doesn't guarantee that the information available is correct. Sometimes books are also faulty. Some are actually very faulty. So how do we make sure that the information that we have are correct? Later on, we will be discussing qualities or characteristics of reliable sources. But for now, let's talk about primary and secondary sources. These are very basic knowledge. When we say primary sources, these are documents and original artifacts from people who participated in and witnessed an actual event in history. For example, you being inside the classroom, once you tell what happened inside the classroom to someone else, then you are considered a primary source. Why? Because you were inside that classroom. You were part of the ones who experienced whatever occurred inside the classroom. You are one of the actual witnesses to whatever happened inside the classroom. These can also take different forms like audio materials. For example, here in our classroom, you started recording, say it may it be a video recording or an audio recording of whatever is happening inside this classroom. then that may serve also as a primary source because it is actually what it is. Music, photographs, objects, artifacts, statistics, or texts. These may all be means of documenting primary sources. Now, if it is an event in history, for example, the EDSA revolution, you talk to someone who participated in the EDSA revolution, then that person may be considered a primary source. All right? How about secondary sources? These are documents, images, texts, and objects that are created by someone who only reference primary sources through analysis, synthesis, interpretation, and evaluation. So you weren't part of whatever it is that occurred. For example, you being one of those who attended this class told, for example, your sibling about what happened inside the class, you are the primary source. But once your sibling talks about it, say to your mother or to your father, then your sibling now becomes a secondary source because your sibling referenced you as the primary source. So if it is from history, again to our back to our example, saying martial law naman, for example, martial law, and you reference primary sources, so you listen to the stories of those who actually experienced them, and then you made your own documents or your own texts about their experiences, then what you made is now considered a secondary source. Examples of these are journal articles that comment on or analyze research, textbooks, political commentaries, and so on and so forth. Now, how do we know if our source is trustworthy? I've been asking this question a couple of times already. And how exactly do we do that? That is by remembering CRAAP, which stands for Currency, Relevance, Authority, Accuracy, and Purpose. These are the qualities that we may look for whenever we are looking at sources to identify whether they are trustworthy or not. Let's start with currency. Currency is simply the timeliness of the information. When something is timely, that means it is updated, the opposite of outdated. Why is it important for us to have information that are updated or timely or current? That is because if something is not updated, then it may consist of information that are no longer relevant to the society. For example, you got a survey, the results of a survey done in 2009. For example, the whole Philippines took the survey, but that was in 2009. How many people died from 2009 to 2023? How many were born, right? So it doesn't really represent the current circumstances. Apart from that, what are the things that happened from 2009 to 2003? Those would also affect the results of the survey. So it must be timely. If it is not timely, then it becomes a false information. When was the information published or posted? That's why we put the year, right? Whenever we cite our sources. Has the information been revised or updated? If there is a more updated version or a revised version of the information, then you have to get that. Next, is the information current or out of date for your topic? And are the links functional? If the links aren't functional, then most likely that is no longer updated. The next one for CRAAP is relevance. Relevance is simply the importance of the information. How do we identify whether information, a certain information, is relevant or important or not? You have to answer these questions. First, does the information relate to your topic or answer your question? Of course, if it is not related in any way to your topic, then it is not relevant. It's not important. Who is the intended audience? If it would not matter to your audience, then it is not relevant. For example, Ma'am Micah has information for accountancy students, but my students right now are CHMT students. Do you think that is relevant or important to them? No, right? Because I have to keep it to myself. That's why it's also important that you think of your audience. Will this matter to them? Next is the information at an appropriate level. For example, not too elementary or too advanced for your needs. Not only to your audience, but also to your topic. For example, the information that you have are very basic, but you are in need of producing an output or a speech, may it be written or oral, that is more of formal or something for a higher level, then the information becomes irrelevant. Have you looked at a variety of sources before determining this is the one you will use? It is not relevant if you find another source that seems to be more applicable to your topic and to your audience. And lastly, would you be comfortable using this source for a research paper or for a speech or for any academic writing? It is also important that you feel comfortable using the piece of information that you got to make it relevant. The first A for CRAAP is authority. Authority is the source of the information. For someone or something to have the authority, then it must have the credentials. Who is the author, publisher, source, or sponsor? It matters. Okay? If you've noticed, all of our news anchors or news reporters, you will never hear even a taint of scandal attached to them. Because it's very important. They have to be credible. Are the authors credible? Or are the authors' credentials or organizational affiliations given? So you have to see what makes this person authorized to give the information that he or she is giving. For example, a medical doctor is a medical doctor and someone that we respect. But if this medical doctor writes something about the law, does that make him credible? No, right? So it's important that we know if the author or the source of our information has the right credentials and organizational affiliations. These are the organizations that the author is affiliated with or connected with. That would also suggest whether he or she has the authority to be the author or the source of information. Third, what are the author's credentials or organizational affiliations given? So if they were given, what are they? Fourth, what are the author's qualifications to write on the topic? So it's very important as well. And is their contact information, such as a publisher or email address? This makes them more real, right? If there is contact information. It makes it easier for us to contact them, and hence they get more sense of accountability to whatever information they put out there. Next, does the URL reveal anything about the author or source? For example, if it is .com, like facebook.com, google.com, that means commercial. So everything's there. .edu stands for educational. For example, at dyci.edu.ph. So these are articles written for educational purposes. .gov stands for government. So most likely these were produced for the government, .org for nonprofit organizations, and .net for network. The next A stands for accuracy. What is accurate? It is reliable, true, and correct. So it means it contains information that are truthful or correct, reliable. Where does the information come from? Is the information supported by evidence? That's precisely how we identify whether the information is accurate or not, if it has sufficient evidence. Has the information been reviewed or refereed? If it was not reviewed by anyone, then it was just simply published by someone, then most likely it is not accurate. For example, Wikipedia. Wikipedia may be edited by anyone, so nobody really reviews that, and so it is not accurate. So don't get your assignments from Wikipedia, please. Next, can you verify any of the information in another source or from personal knowledge? So one more thing that you can do to identify whether the information that you have is accurate or not is to look for other sources of information. If there are other sources that appear to be reliable, trustworthy, they have contact details, you know the credentials of the author, the publisher is available, the information is updated, then you may consider it accurate. Does the language or tone seem biased and free of emotions? So for the language or tone, if it is seemingly biased, for example, it sides toward a particular topic or a particular position, it is not free of the author's emotion, then you have to rethink before you consider this information. And also, if there are spelling, grammar, or other typographical errors, then most likely it wasn't reviewed by anyone, and most likely it contains information that are not accurate or incorrect. Lastly, for CRAAP, we have purpose. What is the reason that the information exists? What is the purpose of the information? Is it to inform? Was it written to teach? Was it written to sell, entertain, or persuade? If it was written to sell, then most likely some of the information given are not correct. Because when you want people to buy something, you give them information even if these information aren't really true. It usually happens. If it is simply meant to entertain, then there may also be some information that are not correct. Do the authors or sponsors make their intentions or purpose clear? Because sometimes there are hidden messages, hidden agenda, right? To whatever it is that you are reading. And so you have to make sure that you are fully aware of the intentions of the authors or the sponsors. Is the information fact, opinion, or propaganda? When we say fact, it is true, it is correct. When we say opinion, it may be true, it may not be true. It depends upon the person speaking, because again, it is an opinion. That's the problem with opinion. If it is a propaganda, then it has an aim, it has a goal, something that it wants to happen. So you have to know how to identify. Does the point of view appear objective and impartial? If it is seemingly subjective, if it is biased, then do not consider it. And are there political, ideological, cultural, religious, institutional, or personal biases included in the information or in the text? For example, your source of information overly praises BBM, then it has its bias. In the same way that if it sides towards the other side of the fence, I mean the Aquinos naman, then it is also biased. So it must have that impartial, fair judgment towards anything. If the material also features anything negative about any religious beliefs, for example, nilalait yung INC or the Catholic Church, then do not consider that material or that source of information. Most likely, it is biased. That would be it for our seventh lesson for purposive communication. These are our references. Thank you very much and God bless.